Heather Barnes, an early childhood educator and trainer. It's my privilege today to be talking with three educators representing family daycare, long daycare and preschools from different parts of Australia about how they document, assess and plan for children's learning. None of these educators profess to be experts or to have all the answers, but they very kindly agreed to share what they do so that other educators can see the range of different ways that educators can incorporate the early years learning framework and work towards meeting the requirements of the National Quality Standard. This is Marion Drysdale, a preschool teacher from Western Australia. Thank you for coming all the way to Canberra, Marion, to share your programming and documentation with us. I wonder if we could begin by just asking you to share with us a little bit about your unique setting.
I work at North Dandalup Primary School, and North Dandalup's a small community about 75 kilometres from Perth. It's up on the Darling Range and it has a range of families and socio-economic backgrounds. The school's quite a small rural school. It's got a really strong environmental background. We have a vegetable garden at the school, we have chickens, we have a recycling program, and we have a lovely nature trail which is part of the school and we can use as part of our school program. The classes are all multi-age classes. The class that I'm working in has kindergarten children, which in Western Australia is their first exposure to school. It's 3 to 4 year olds. Pre-primary children, which is the year before school, which are for 5 and 6 year olds, and year ones. I've got 4 kindergarten children, 14 pre-primary children and 4 year 1 children. I actually share teaching the year 1 children with another teacher. She teaches them for their literacy and numeracy based lessons in the morning and I teach them for the other lessons in the afternoon.
As a teacher responsible for all of those different ages and stages, how do you ensure that you're meeting the individual learning and development needs of those children?
By observing them carefully to see what they know and what they can do, by looking at their interests to see what they're interested in, and by knowing what they should be able to do next. We find that having different age levels can be really beneficial, and play is really important for older children. It often gets forgotten about. Also, I try and make all my tasks open-ended so that children can participate in them at their own level and they can be successful doing those tasks.
Great. I wonder if you could share with us now how you gather information about children.
Okay, well, first and foremost, we use observations like most early childhood teachers do. I've got an observation file for each child. So it's in a file like this, and I've got my observations written down as anecdotal records. I also use checklists because they're always useful, and use them for varying purposes along my teaching. Use lots of photographs taken by both me and the children. We have a photograph journal that we use in our classroom, and it shows us what we've been doing. It's great for parents to look at and reflect. It's a nice turnip that we grew there for things, but it also shows us what the children are doing. Here's a great photograph of the children all cooperating. So not only have we written down what the children are doing, we can actually see what they're doing together. I have individual portfolios for children that show their progress. Here's a nice slime experience, and here we've been doing some documentation on how they write their name and draw their pictures, and it tells me some stuff about their pencil group.
Great. Thank you, Marion. You've got some really interesting and varied ways of gathering information about children. I wonder if we can think now about the process that the Early Years Learning Framework talks about in terms of it being an ongoing cycle of gathering information, analysing that information and using that to plan further experiences for children to support their learning and development, and then evaluating and reflecting on that. I wonder if you could take us through those next steps now.
Well, we first observe children so that we can get the information, as we've already said. We like to listen to them really carefully. We had noticed that the children were having ongoing conversations at shared fruit time about how to say hello in other languages. I had some little boys, we had a world map up on the wall, and some little boys were really interested in that. We'd also noticed in some state-based testing that we'd done that our children's knowledge and ability to recount and retell a story could do with some development. And we thought this really fitted nicely with the Children's Book Week theme for this year, which is One World, Many Stories. So that was our starting point. The children at our school don't come from a very rich multicultural background. They have not a lot of contact with other people from other cultures, so that's something that we wanted to build and extend. That was part of our attentional teaching. Having a magic carpet to ride onto other countries would be exciting and interesting. We actually developed a magic carpet song which we sang with the children every time we went to another country on the carpet. In my planning I actually have made the links, so when I'm planning I've linked it to outcome number 2 and about the children respecting diversity, something that I needed to do. And in my planning I actually have the outcomes around the outside. It makes me aware of them every day. My planning, I actually type it up and then I reflect and comment on it in another colour and use arrows to make links when I'm doing that. At the end of the term I always do an evaluation of what I've done during the term, just to remind me and pull all the bits and pieces together. And for this term too, I put a great big sheet of paper up on the wall where the children could actually draw and write their comments. And the children that couldn't write drew pictures, and for some children too it was just an opportunity to have a go at writing with other children to read it.
Lovely, sounds great. As in other parts of Australia, there is a requirement for preschool teachers in WA to work with other curricula. Can you share with us how you've managed to incorporate different approaches?
Well, we have, in Western Australia, we have a curriculum framework which we have to adhere to. So at the moment we've had some people from the department who've made some links for that. They've actually linked the Early Years Learning Framework with the Western Australian curriculum framework. So I've just put a copy of this draft document in the front of my planning, and it just helps me make the links between the two documents. I've made a grid here with the Early Years Learning Framework, and I've linked it to the West Australian documents, and I've also planned for individuals using this planning. It helps me cater for individual needs when I'm planning. Yes, it's changing all the time. I keep finding things that I didn't realise that this part of the Early Years Learning Framework actually linked with this part of our curriculum framework. So it's really been interesting for me, and it's been a way for me to visit our state documents, which sometimes I just don't have time to do. So it's been really good for me as a teacher to go back and look at them again and look at them through new eyes and through a different light.
Thank you so much, Marion. It's been really fascinating to hear how you meet the requirements for your setting, as well as incorporating the core elements of the Early Years Learning Framework. So thank you again.
Thank you.
These 3 segments have been designed to demonstrate that there's not just one way to plan that can incorporate the EYLF or meet the requirements of the National Quality Standard. Each of these educators is using a process that works for them and their children and families, their settings and their contexts. Educators are encouraged to fine-tune their current methods so that they will meet the standards and elements of the National Quality Standard. Being guided by the approved learning framework in the way that you work with children, as well as in the way that you document their learning, will mean that you're well on the way to meeting the NQS.